I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. It was 1 month ago today that one of our employees, Bob Carter, tragically lost his daughter in an accident up in Mountain Ranch, and I would just like to take a moment of silence to acknowledge the short time she was with us on this earth, but the fact that she will always be a part of the CCWD family. Thank you. Item number 1, roll call.
Director Davidson?
Here.
Director Ratterman, absent. President Underhill?
Here.
Director Mills?
Present.
And Director Strange?
Here.
Okay, item number 2, and we're ready for our public comment. Do I have part of the public that would like to come and address the board on any non-agendized item?
Thank you. Is this on now?
Is it?
Is the red light on?
No, it's on. Okay, now I think it's on. Okay. This is a sound guy. I should know these things. President Underhill and members of the board, I'm Catherine Evett from Foothill Conservancy. I wanted to let you know about the River Reflections Art Show that has opened in McCullough Hill this week at the Hotel Leger there. It's a wonderful program that was put together by the Calaveras County Arts Council, Amador Arts, and it's co-sponsored by Foothill Conservancy and East Bay Mud. And it includes visual, performing, and literary arts from 29 artists, 27 of whom are local, that are all inspired by the McCullough River. And it's just a fantastic show. And it's been on exhibit so far in Sutter Creek and then down in Oakland, and now it's on display in McCullough Hill for, I think, the rest of this month. The artist reception for the show is on Saturday from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And I'd urge you to come if you can, because there'll be musical performances and poetry readings. And there's one woman who sort of did herself up as a big living sculpture fountain that doesn't perform very often. She's going to be there. So we wanted to invite you and hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional public comment?
So Catherine, that's not over at the art center or the art facility, that's, okay.
Good morning, George Fry. I'd like to thank the two directors that attended the Board of Supervisors meeting yesterday, Dennis Mills and Terry Strange, as well as your manager, Dave Egerton. Also, I'd like to thank Supervisor Oliveira for attending your meeting this morning. I'm glad to see that the cooperation is going both ways in terms of attending meetings. I think this is really, really important that we have this ongoing situation happening. Thank you.
Additional public comment? Okay.
She's walking up.
Oh.
I'm Mike Preston from Hathaway Pines. I have just a question of this august board, and that is, this study that was done by the Calaveras Enterprise, I've never heard of it. Nobody has put their name on it. Do you folks know anything about it that shows that the wild and scenic folks are 75% in favor? And in our part of the world,
I'm sorry, that's an item that is agendized, Mike, and so we
what else?
can't.
We can ask during that agenda item. We can discuss that.
Okay.
This is for items that are not on the agenda. Just
Oh, that's on the agenda?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
You're a little early, that's all.
oh, yeah.
Good morning. My name is Vicki Mills, and As my husband can tell you, I'm a bit of a terrier on stuff. I was really hoping Mr. Ratterman was here today because this public comment is sort of directed at him. We had had a discussion a few months ago about reporting out after closed sessions. And we, of course, disagreed. However, I found in your wonderful book here, which is CCWD Board Policies. Your policy, and I whacked the mic again, 5010.50, closed session. Your policy actually states the board shall publicly report at a public meeting during which the closed session is held or at its next public meeting, any action taken during the closed session and any roll call vote therein. So even if we ignore the Brown Act, the sitting board at that time also ignored their own policy. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Morning, Bob Leitzel, McCollum Hill. I knew you were going to take up, or I thought you were going to take up Wild and Scenic today.
Oh, excuse me,
I just
we
walked in the door.
that
and,
is-
so if you are, maybe I shouldn't be talking now.
Right, yes, thank you. It will,
Okay.
it is agendized. Okay. One more sweep? No. Okay. Go on to item number 3, consent agenda. The following items are expected to be routine, non-controversial. Items may be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that any item be removed for later discussion. Item 3A, approval of minutes for the board meeting of January 28, 2015. 3B, ratify claim summary number 516, secretarial fund in the amount of $1,895,728.23 for February 2005.
Move for acceptance.
I'd like to pull
Well-
3B.
We'll pull 3B.
Move for acceptance of 3A.
Okay, excuse me.
He's going to move for 3A.
You're going to move for acceptance of 3A.
Correct.
Okay.
And I second
And-
the acceptance.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 3B, Director Strange?
Yeah, in looking at the claim summaries and all, again, I've got to revisit my earlier statements in previous meetings of looking, as per one of our policies, at providing opportunity for local businesses to keep the money here locally and all. And I see on check number 119873, DOS Environmental Services for CEQA. When I go in and look at where their office is, it's over in the East Bay. I really want to, again, and by the way, the check was for $15,720. There are a number of CEQA companies, local companies that provide CEQA services, and I really want to have staff focus again on providing local opportunities for local businesses to keep that money local. That's one of a number of items that have been identified over the last 3 months for other agents or other companies. And I do understand that with certain expertise, obviously, if we don't have the expertise locally, that's fine. Also on item 119795, it's really semantics. The California Department of Fish and Game no longer exists. It's the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So I think that making that change is more appropriate. And one other item too. Well, okay. That was my comment. Again, local opportunities for local businesses.
Director Mills?
Yes, my comment is that, thank you, Jeff Meyer, for spending a half an hour of your time with me regarding the secretarial summary, and I'm sure that I'm digging into it a lot deeper than most board members would even think about. But if we're going to fully understand our budgeting process going forward, we have to have a very good understanding of our spending habits and how we're using the ratepayers' money. So I appreciate your effort in getting the information to me.
I'd like to question an item on page 4, 119882, and this is a Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and that is a FERC license,
Yes.
and that is, the time period here is from October 14th through September of 15.
Yes, we pay annual fees for the FERC license and typically are reimbursed by NCPA.
NCPA
Yes.
will reimburse us.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? I might have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
No,
Oh.
a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Make the motion.
I'm sorry, excuse me, let's go back. Did I hear a comment out of the,
Madam Chair, our protocol has been that you would ask the motion and second,
and then open it up for comment? Okay,
I'd like to motion that we accept this item.
second? We have a second?
Do I have to do all the work? I'll second it.
Okay. Open for public comment?
On this subject, I would like Peter Ray's gentleman, and I put this request also to the Board of Supervisors, and hopefully they're going to be doing it. It would help if some of these folks who are paying for all this would have an opportunity to see the same information that you're seeing, okay? If you could print up another copy that's available to you and put it outside so people can see the numbers, okay? I mean, I copied it for some reason I cannot access what she sent me an email. So, but that's beside the point. That's probably my stupidity. But it would be a nice courtesy in getting people involved. It's nice to see the headlines, but some people might appreciate to see what you see and what work you've been doing so they can fully appreciate your work. To have a copy of it just sitting out there, I don't think it would be that much money involved, but I believe you might want to create some goodwill on it. That's all I'm asking, if it's possible. Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me, Mona, there is a copy out there?
The whole packet?
The whole packet is at the desk that's sitting outside here.
Okay,
For
good,
review.
thank you.
It's sitting at the receptionist desk. It's right out at the desk here, yeah. Customer service area.
Good morning, President Underhill. Jeffrey Meyer, Director of Admin Services. Just as a footnote to those members of the public who have not attended our meetings previously, when we post our agenda on Thursday, we post the entire agenda packet, including all the supporting documents on our website. So they do have that opportunity. Unfortunately, this morning, Motherlode Services, which is one of the major internet providers in Calaveras County and Tuolumne County, had issues. People cannot access our website at this point, along with a number of businesses and other entities within this region. That just happened at about 2:30 this morning. So our IT director is working through that process, but prior to that date, as soon as the agenda is posted on the website, as is all the detail and the backup to all the information, including the claim summary.
Thank you very much. And as Mona indicated, in print, it is at the, it is at our customer service, in our customer service office. Okay, item number 4, reports, general
I
manager.
don't believe we voted on that.
Excuse me? Oh,
Did we vote?
Motion on the floor.
Okay.
Madam President, I would suggest that we, and just for sake of clarity, I think we probably want to start to do a roll call vote on every item. I think it's just, we know, and one can take that vote and then announce the result of the motion.
Okay.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
President Underhill?
Yes.
Director Mills?
No.
And Director Strange?
Yes.
Item number 4, General Manager's Report.
Yes, Madam President, I submitted a written report to the board, just to touch on some of these, and if there's any other questions of the board on those items, I'd be happy to follow up. But I think probably most importantly, I want to take this opportunity, it's something that's addressed tangentially in this report, and that's the work on 3A, the 3A line, the Evans Pass area, and certainly this has been one of our most important projects for some time, and one that we're going to be discussing with the board at its next meeting in more detail as part of our project list. But I wanted to recognize Phil Curley and his staff for the work that they're doing right now to try to provide us with a little more operational flexibility in the event that we should have a failure between now and the conclusion of the construction project, which is to commence this year. Bill provided this to me. I'm going to be careful. It's actually very sharp. But this is a piece of the pipe, the 3A pipe that was actually just removed. They're putting in valves at key locations along the line so that in the event we do have an outage, it doesn't affect the entire length of the line. Instead, we can isolate it. And so one of the things that's going to happen today is the effort to put in those valves within the heart of the community up there. And President Underhill, I know you've been a big part of that, trying to work with the community to recognize their needs. And clearly, we want to try to minimize impacts to our local business. I mean, we don't take that lightly if they're not able to serve their customers. So, but as you can see, this is a steel pipe with a water lining to it. And this 3A line is over 50 years old. It's beyond its expected lifespan. And there are a lot of what I understand, and Bill's here, you can certainly answer any questions on it, but there's a lot of pressure put on this line because of the hammering effect on the line, particularly when we have to, when fire hydrants are used and fire flow is necessary. But that does put has put stress on the line, and so we're seeing that around the joints and connections there are places where the water has cracked and is failing. And so that this is firsthand what we're dealing with, and I really appreciate all the great work on this. I know Bill needs to get out of here as soon as he can to go up there and be a part of that effort. And so I just wanted to note that. As well in the project, we got great news that from USDA that for the Rural Development Grant Work Program, we have been found eligible to apply for funding for that. So that's over $1 million we expect in grant funds, plus then an additional million or so in low interest loans that we could use to fund this project. I want to thank Bill, I want to thank Charles for their work on that, and everybody that's been a part of that. We've maintained a great relationship with USDA, and people with Frank Rizzo. Can't thank him enough for his work in helping us get that done. So we will proceed with the application. We've actually submitted the documentation for the application. As soon as we get confirmation and documentation on the loan and the grant from USDA, we will bring that to the board for consideration, and we will have wider public information on that. This is an important way that we can get this project off the ground and help leverage the local funds, state investments made by our educators in our program.
Okay, excuse me on that. As you can see, or in our board, we know that we're going to be replacing 19,000 linear feet of pipe through downtown Arnold. And what is happening this afternoon is that our field forces are going to be able to isolate and put in 2 of the valves at either side of Cedar Center so that we don't have to, in the future, we will not have to cut off all of Arnold at the same time. Cedar Center bent over backwards. They were so agreeable to take out 4 or 5 hours of business, depending on how long it takes us to put in those valves. But in the future, as I say, we will not have to shut it off all at once. We can do it incrementally. So that was very great.
So in here, it, again, as I'm reading the statements, we're eligible for funding and we're being considered, but there's no guarantees yet.
It's not a signed deal yet, but all of our past practice on this is that when we get past, that's the key stage to get past. And once you get past that, it's at this point, we have a very high expectation that we will receive those funds. And that's what we, based on our experience and, again, our relationship with the staff, USDA staff here in the region. So I fully expect that we'll be successful in this, and it's more just completing the last stages to be able to prepare the paperwork to bring back to this board to say, yes, we will agree to those terms for the grant and loan.
What's the timing on that typically? Any idea?
We get a letter of conditions, and the letter of conditions we receive. I mean, this thing's been going on for over a year. That's how long the process takes. We start the pre-app, then we do the full application. Right now, we received the letter of conditions. What I'm gonna do is write an agenda item to go before this board, which I've done a bunch of times since I've been here, asking you guys to accept the grant loan package that's on the table right now. That's the next step of the process. Timing on this, you have up to 1 year to start construction on the project. If you don't have to do it within 1 year, you ask for an extension, they give you more time. But that's basically the next step is, we have a letter of conditions. If we accept those conditions, which we probably are gonna, because there's really nothing out of line, and it's just standard stuff. We need you guys to approve it because there is a loan, it's over Dave's spending limit unless you guys change it to $5 million. Has that been done? But that's really what the whole issue comes down to. So once that's accepted, you get the money, we can do whatever we want.
Okay.
But, we gotta submit the plans. Mike Stravinsky's the engineer for those guys. We submit him the plans. He says, okay, they're not gonna make any major changes. All the environmental stuff's all been hammered out. They were the lead agencies on the CCWD, stuff like that. USDA was instead of us. He thinks kind of different. Then all we did was pay the mitigation fee. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. We're a small community. We're eligible for funding. This is normal stuff. We do it all the time. I mean, it's just once you get to the point we're at right now, it's a good thing. So as soon as we see the letter of conditions, we know the money's in the bank. We just gotta, like Dave says, we got one little piece of paper to send down to them, and then they send it over to our side of the table. That's all that happens.
Good.
Excuse me.
I was going to say, we should be prepared to write a letter of thank you and acknowledgement to Frank when this happens. I mean, as a governmental employee, I don't think you always receive the accolades that is needed, so.
Better get him before he retires.
Yes,
Like
and
Brooke said in the valve, we're putting in 15 isolation valves up there, like Dave says, to make sure that when the construction goes, it's gonna go smoothly. We won't have anybody down for any length of time. But the key is to get it going, and that's what we've been working on since Monday, like Dave said, in the section of pipe. I mean, this is a high-pressure line, so it's a little bit nasty, so we gotta put a line stop in so we can pull out a couple of valves, which we're gonna do. We're gonna be, by 4 o'clock this afternoon, I'm either fired or I'm going to have a couple of beers, but one or the other, but that's the way it works. You gotta get the high pressure line stopped. I mean, there's 22,000 pounds of pressure against that valve right now, so we gotta get this thing going.
Good. Well, it sounds like a good IPA is in order then.
the name Frank Rizzo, I can remember him way back, and so,
Oh, he's been there forever. I mean, he
Yeah.
said he worked with the Dolly Cassidy, he even proposed homes. I mean, he's been serving this community for years. I don't know how much longer he's gonna stay serving the community, because he's old like the rest of us.
okay.
Dave, it's a great report out. I'm glad to see this format that you're putting together here. I would ask, though, that any changes in policies follow our Resolution 2011-51. That would be the August 2011 Strategic Business Plan, and that policies or statements of policy revision do pass through the Finance Committee before coming to the full board, as per that agreement.
And I think you're specifically referring to the paragraph regarding updates and board policies and procedures in the meeting.
That's correct.
Yes, and Director Mills, just to let you know, I had thought, how everything is intertwined with policy. I thought that, for us to go through the process of reviewing our protocol for board meetings and to update that as the board desires would be a simple, expedited thing to do, but it involves the actual board policies themselves. So I'll take you up on that and we'll work it that way, but that will come back. And I don't see any really dramatic changes, but I just want to make sure that, you know, everybody is comfortable with the procedures that we are applying. And
Aqua,
yes.
Federal Affairs.
Yes, and the ARPA conference, I was able to spend a day in DC just on our issues and meeting with our representatives in the legislature, in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, and then as well, Congressman David Valley, who is the author of the law bill in the House, H.R. 4, won that contract with the New Maloney's. And as well, I met with the Deputy Commissioner of Reclamation, and I think those meetings were extremely productive. And you know, I think that what I learned from that, and I really want to convey, is that the people that are really at the heart of working on this drought bill are the legislative staff of those members that are physically in DC, and they're really the things that are evolving and developing day by day on that as they meet with other legislative staff of other members to try to negotiate a path forward that can be ultimately accepted in the House and the Senate and be passed into law. And so, you know, those things are developing day to day, and so it was just an eye-opener to me that, you know, there's things you can certainly do from the district office, but you really have to be in close contact with those people in DC to make that happen. And so as part of that, I think it, you know, gives a reason maybe to take another look at the need for federal advocacy services and whether that's in our best interest, particularly at this time that we are really trying to get this bill, get this done so that we can get the contract with New Maloney's, which would be extremely valuable to us. The message that I got from those that had been directly involved with it was that they were very close to having a bipartisan deal that they thought could pass into law at the end of last year. Unfortunately, that was, you may have seen the headlines in the Sacramento Bee calling it a secret meetings on a secret plan that were being driven by Western water interests. And so that ultimately it unraveled, but there's a commitment to re-engage on that. And the House, I was told that the House will have a bill introduced this year on drought, and they will have committee hearings on it. And so that is, you know, that's our effort is going to be to get that language in there again. It's something that we want to see happen.
We have a tremendous stake in that Malonis-Warren contract water. Tremendous.
We do, and we have to, I would hope that we can revisit some federal advocacy, because it is not going to be written by somebody in Sacramento. It's not going to be written by us. I think it's probably the most important thing that this district has done in decades is to get that storage in Maloney's, and now's not the time to put our foot off the gas. So I would hope that we reconsider that sometime quickly in the future.
Yeah, I agree. And feel free to suggest agendizing that for our next meeting.
Well, I'll leave that up to our general manager to pick the timing on that, but I would like to see that back on our agenda.
Okay,
Thank you.
Dave,
Thank you.
Excuse me. Dave, you mentioned a bill being written in the House. Did you have any time frame of when that
Well, we
will
don't
occur?
even have a draft of it right now, but I did receive their commitment or their assurance that they would, at a minimum, there would be another bill introduced in the House this year with committee hearings. You know, there's been a lot of things happening on budget, and security, all of that, so that's kind of taken their attention, the focus of everything right now. But I think we will certainly, as we get into the summer and additional impacts of the drought in the state, that's really going to highlight it, and then that's going to move it forward. The question will be, can they get? You would think that it would actually be a simpler process now with Republican control of both houses of Congress, but in fact, they think that it actually makes it more complicated, because the new Senate will likely want to expand this to a Western-wide bill to address water-related, drought-related issues across a broader geographical expanse. So there's going to probably be more in the way of analysis and timing that will take you through that. But ultimately, if we continue along this path, 4 years of drought, particularly when we get into the fifth year, I mean, everybody knows this is a very high priority, and something has to be done in time on it. It's just screaming for some kind of some kind of bipartisan bill that can gain support of the president.
And I think that's one of the keys to, Senator Feinstein's office is, the president is not likely to buck if Feinstein supports this and supports our project. The president's very unlikely to veto it at that point. I mean, if just the Republicans try to push something forward, he may very well veto it. But that's why we need to be working closely with her office to get this thing done.
Dave, as you know, timing's everything. So as this comes forward, hopefully you'll bring it before the board for a letter of support or some type of resolution that we can push out. In any of these that come before Congress, we should be immediately on it with a resolution of support.
Okay. And I want to make sure that as they're drafting that language, we are submitting the language. And that's
yeah,
we really
that's-
are providing assistance to our representatives to be able to, effectively develop a bill, because if we can actually be there to propose language that would benefit us, and we could say, look, this is a bill we would be supportive of, and we would stand up for, and we would even come to DC to speak at a committee hearing if needed to pledge that support. I mean, that's valuable to them. So they're looking for us to provide that. I got that. That was what the chief water person from McClintock's office wants. Feinstein staff wants our direct involvement with it as well. So we'll.
I think it's important to know that they're going to want us to write our own language, and they'll certainly provide their input, but that's what the federal advocate will do for us, and it's a close interaction that gives us that will ultimately give us that support from Senator Feinstein's office. I think Congressman McClintock, I don't think that we have a very tough road to go there. I think he's very supportive of the project and all that, but I mean, we want to be authors, not supporters. I mean, we want to do both, Dennis, but I think we need to be the author of that, particularly our language.
And I'd like to know about the relationship or what kind of an impact Aqua has on any of these programs or letters or...
Great question. A great segue to the next. So the next day that I was in DC, I spent the day with the leadership of Aqua, and we were meeting with representatives and officials in the administration on comprehensive solutions for California's water problems, and part of that was the drought bill, the need for the drought bill. So we hammered that at every opportunity that needs to happen. We need to see bipartisan support, something that actually gets done as opposed to simply a political statement. And also things like the headwater management effort of Aqua. That's something I want to come back to the board with very soon. Aqua is in the process of, will be in a matter of days, releasing its headwater management framework that this agency played a leadership role. Bob Dean did in the development of that. It's the first ever policy statement by the association on behalf of the needs of upstream communities like ours, is particularly in the area of fuels reduction and restoring forests to some street fire suppression habitat that reduces catastrophic fire and provides more water supply and better quality water supply. That's all now one of the prime things that Aqua is working on. So we spoke up about that at every opportunity as well as part of that comprehensive solution. And I think something actually is going to happen on that. There are many groups that are lining up now. We've even got environmental groups like the Nature Conservancy that have joined in and supported that effort. So again, I'll bring that back to you as soon as that information is made available. And in fact, I think Tim Quinn, Executive Director of Aqua, has asked to have the opportunity to come and speak to the board on that as well. Again, probably thinking more than anything to thank this agency for its direct involvement in that. Really carried the flag for this here in Nevada on what was a statewide effort, but obviously our spot in that is the majority of the state's water supply snowpack. We play a central role in that. And I actually have been asked to be part of the rollout of that, as to be one of the leaders of that as well, so to continue to work.
The Headwaters thing has really got me a little bit concerned that we're dividing the forces on that, so to speak. I mean, we looked at what our lobbyist was doing with Headwaters issues in relationship to Forest Service. And at least that's what I read out of the lobbyist effort, was it was really focused on working with the Forest Service, which is great. And then Supervisor Edson's got, the idea of this county's watershed effort, and now Aqua's got the Headwaters, watershed effort. And my understanding is that the Sierra Nevada Conservancy has their own Headwaters kind of funding targets for specific projects. let's bring it all together. Again, let's maximize our effort, our efficiency, and the funding that's out there and available. And that's kind of my broad brush statement.
I completely agree, and I was actually talking to John Mills about that yesterday. The same thing. It was really time that we really coalesce around what our principles are. The framework has a series of, I think, 24 recommendations on action that actually needs to happen right away, and it involves all those different stakeholders. So we've got to have broad consensus on the approach and really be working closely together. I mean, just as I was back in DC, I know there are these other groups are going there as well, and I want to make sure that we really are able to speak, to the same message and be able to really, really leverage that. The fact that we can all keep coming in and saying the same thing and say, look how broad a basis of support there is for this effort. It's something that needs to be given serious consideration.
It really kind of, goes back to, I believe you attended the summit that we had at the town hall. Senator Feinstein's office was there. And again, I agree that literally every, from the environmental folks to the water supply folks to the forest management folks and people that just realize that the forest is going to burn down one day if we don't do something, and probably it will anyway because we won't get it done in time. But there was great consensus that, there was really no dissension that we have to do something, but we never took it to the next step of, okay, let's get everybody back in the room, come up with a pilot project or not even a pilot project. Maybe that's, we've already probably piloted enough of this to know it's real science and it needs to be done. What are recommendations that we should be going to the federal government with? I think that's really the next step is we need to develop regulations that we want to see changed that'll make our forests store more water and be healthier. And so I'm not saying I know how to get there. I'm saying that seems to be the next step because there was, we had a great, start off meeting and everybody's branched off of it.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of time to reel it in and say, okay, well, let's go after the easy stuff first. Let's get some federal regulation changes, and then try to get those accomplished, and then move forward from there.
Yes, there was a lot of energy at that summit. I was there, and I guess, Terry, you were there. But maybe we could go back to whoever put that summit together and
That would have
say,
been us.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That was CCWD.
I've heard of that agency.
And dig out that attendance sheet and say, where do we go?
Yeah. Well, perhaps we can talk with Supervisor Edson and get some recommendations and see and try to get everybody into maybe there's an ad hoc committee that needs to be formed and then see if we can get some traction with that. So.
Good suggestion.
That concludes my report.
Oh, okay.
Just an information on it. No, it's just a GM report. I'll follow up with you.
Okay, item number 5, new business. 5A, update on the potential drawdown of Lake Tulloch Reservoir. Dave Egerton.
Madam President, I just wanted to give the board a status report on what's happened on our latest information that we have on the status of Lake Tulloch and the planned operations going forward, particularly given that we're in the 4th year of drought, and some of the numbers you'll see actually show that the conditions have deteriorated since the last year. I hope you can see that. I keep increasing the font size every time, but it always seems inadequate. So just to give you a little overview of Lake Tulloch, and I know a lot of this information has been shared by Trident, and I don't want to belabor that, but I just wanted to give you that as again background. Total storage capacity over almost 67,000 acre feet, and it would be at an elevation of 510 feet above sea level at total capacity. The operating ranges of Tulloch in a typical year, there's a range for summer and there's a range for winter. Obviously, we'd be most concerned about the one in summer as we approach, as we're coming into that. And it's between 506 to 509 feet of elevation. So you can see it's not too far below the maximum capacity as it operates through the summer. And as I'll speak to that in a minute, a lot of that is because it is immediately downstream of New Melones, which is a much bigger storage facility, and so its releases and storage are largely determined by what's happening in New Melones. Minimum pool is 11,376 acre feet, 431 elevation. This is a key number for us because this is essentially what would be dead pool if you go beyond this level. You don't have a public water supply. In fact, they wouldn't be able to generate hydropower probably before that. They would be impacted. But that's really a point of kind of that worst case elevation of the storage. Again, it's owned and operated by Tridam, which was a Joint Powers Authority of OID and SSJID. They financed the project. They paid for the series of 3 reservoirs, of which this is one of them. And it was primarily for agricultural water supplies in the district downstream, which are 117,500 irrigated acres that benefit from releases from Tulloch. It also generates some hydropower, over 25 megawatts of hydropower with the facility there at the dam. And our current conditions are that we are at 55,800 acre feet of storage at an elevation of just over 500 feet. Just to give you an overview of the situation, New Melones, of course, it's a much larger facility. It was sometime after its construction, it was integrated into the Central Valley Project, which is a series of dams and conveyance facilities across the state that provide municipal water supplies and ag water supplies for millions of residents and millions of acres of irrigated land. It's also operated in conjunction with the State Water Project, which serves similar purposes mainly on the municipal side. And so there are many layers to the operation of New Melones, and that is performed by Reclamation, which is oversees its operation, and those decisions are largely made out of Sacramento at the regional office, and then the regional office, who's headquartered at Folsom Reservoir, that also has responsibility for New Melones, both CDD facilities. The minimum pool for hydro generation, so there's a level at which, if you go to with the reservoir storage, you would not be able to generate hydropower, and again, this is a big part of the operation of CDD facilities, is to be able to generate hydropower. Obviously, there's a tremendous need for that in our state. There have been severe impacts because of drought with that. The dead pool is 80,000 acre feet. Again, that's kind of worst case scenario situation, but it's something to keep an eye on. This is the number that really gives me the most concern right here. If you look at our end of September carryover storage, so basically what situation are you in going into October 1 with a new water year? You can see that the situation with the ongoing drought has continued to deteriorate almost by a consistent factor. We've lost about 500,000 acre feet of storage within the reservoir since 2012, and to a point now where we're, there's been some additional inflow with precipitation and storms that we've had, and so now we're at a point where it's a bit up from that. But we started at a pretty poor position there at 519,000 acre feet, and now we're just over 600,000 acre feet. This is the fact that we didn't have the carryover storage, and that's a lot of what you'll hear about ongoing drought. One of the biggest problems with it is that we start to see a reduction in our carryover storage. We lose the operational flexibility, and then we're really up against it to whatever the run of the river is that year. And if we don't have a good water year, then things dramatically deteriorate. So what we're looking at right now, precip is not good. Our average is 37.5, and this is on the Middle Fork Stanislaus. So just give you a temperature of where we're at. 37.5 on the average. And this year, well, you can see from 2011-12 to 2013 water years, it's been in the range of 25 to 27 inches. And this year, right now, we're only at 17, and that's merely 47% of normal. The current snowpack as well, and that this is rainfall, but we've also got the upstream snowpack, and that forms an incredibly important part of that continued delayed release of inflow into the reservoir. And a lot of that is the most important cold water that's flowing in. So this is of prime importance for the fisheries. it's even worse, and we've got 13% of normal. I think statewide right now we're looking at about 19% of normal. So we're in a worse, our watershed is in a worse state than elsewhere in the state, and that, of course, is a big concern. And you know, we've seen that we've had productive storms. They haven't provided much in the way of snowpack. I want to note that a lot of this information did come from OID in their presentations, and so I wanted to just follow up on that and again try to be consistent with the message that's going out across the community. The inflow and storage in New Melones, normally we would see over 1 million acre feet. Again, you've got a reservoir 2.4 million acre feet, so you can see it's an enormous reservoir for the size of the typical inflow. The projected inflow this year is a paltry 240,000. That's the best guess right now. And you know, we basically have the remainder of this month is the pretty much the end of the wet season. The peak of snowpack is measured on April 1st, so you can see we don't have a lot of time left to gain inflow. The historic, give you some perspective on the historic use of water that comes through New Melones, and much of this again passes through Tulloch and is operated and released from there. On average, OID, SSJAD is releasing about 400,000 acre feet plus. Last year, 420,000 acre feet for irrigated agricultural needs in the districts they serve. And we are also seeing, and this has really been the point of contention and what was discussed yesterday at the Board of Supervisors, and I want to thank Supervisor Oliveris and his colleagues for taking on the issue of the impacts of drought and what we're seeing at Tulloch and adopting a resolution in support of our efforts to maintain a reliable water supply. But really at the crux of it, what our big concern in part is really the releases for fish flows and water quality. Their number of releases for anadromous fish in the lower Stanislaus River for salmon and steelhead, and as well you have water quality requirements under state law that, for example, to keep salinity out of the delta and using this as a freshwater source to provide for a more to keep the salt water at a level and distance where you can still sustain ecosystems, and that's becoming more and more of a challenge, certainly right now with a lack of storage. But you can see in the past, it's about 200,000 acre feet that's been released for that. And so we're looking at, the issue would be if Tri-Dam operates in the same way for its deliveries and fish flows continue, water quality flows are at the same level. Right now, they're projecting a shortfall of almost 45,000 acre feet. So our challenge is how do you deal with that? How do you address that? And from our perspective, how is that addressed in a way that doesn't take our facilities at Tulloch out of water and put us in a position where we're not able to provide a water supply to the community? And just to give you that, our elevation, our intake is the sole water supply for our community that we serve in the Copper area. About 2,500 connections. The intake's at an elevation of 465 feet of elevation. So what we were talking about right now is the reservoir is just over 500 feet. It typically operates in the summer in a range that's over 500 feet of elevation. So this would not, in normal years, we can operate without any problems associated with elevation. The challenge would be, of course, how is it operated this year? Will they go below that? Is the next steps. The actual operating schedule, the program for operations of New Melones and Tulloch will not be finalized until next month, and we get through this month to see really what the numbers look like at the end of the peak portion of the water year. But the good news for now is that we're told by Tri-Dam at their meeting in Copper on Saturday was that they don't expect to go below a level that would impact our intake. And in fact, they're saying that they expect only to draw down to a level that would be consistent with the level that they go to every 5 years for maintenance that they perform on the reservoir, on their facilities at the reservoir. It's been less than 5 years, but they see this since they're gonna take this opportunity to also go ahead and do the maintenance, so they get another 5-year period on that. And so as we sit right now, we look like we will be able to continue to operate the existing facility through this summer. The challenge really is going to be 2016. Because as I was showing the carryover storage numbers, there's not going to be much in the way of carryover storage in New Melones next year. It's almost certainly it's going to be worse than this year. And so how do we get through that year, next year, and continue to provide this water supply? The way we're seeking to address this, and I really want to credit Bill for this, and I want him to be able to get out of here as soon as we get done with this agenda item, because I know he's got important work to do, but he's been in direct contact with DWR about that we need some assistance from the state to be able to put in facilities to basically lower the pump in the reservoir so that we can go to a lower elevation below 465 that gives us the ability to continue to operate if the lake is drawn down below that intake level, particularly next year. And my opinion is I'd very much like to get ahead of this and not have to react at the last minute if something happens. So if we can get the funding now and we can get this project started, it's about a 2-month period to order the pumps. So there's a lead time that we need to take into account. But if we can go ahead and get the funding as much as we can from the state, that would I would certainly want to update the board on that. But I would be inclined to want to move forward with that so that again we're protected, so that going forward, if conditions deteriorate, which we expect, then we won't be adversely impacted.
One quick question. In the process of the timing and receiving the funds, approval and all that, is there an advantage for the county to declare a state of emergency, which would then free up funds more immediate for our needs to be able to go in and purchase equipment and install and all that? And if so, obviously then, collaboration with the county and the SOUPs are a very important part of that.
And that's a great question, Director Strange. That's one that I put some thought into, and I've talked to some people who've been through this before, and particularly John Mills, who's been dealing with this for some time within Tuolumne. The thought is right now that we have what we need right now to pursue funds from DWR. That declaration of emergency from the county is right now, as of right now, the information we have, it's not necessary. There may be a point where that would be helpful, given the outcome of this water year, and if that is something that the state asks us to do as part of that making the application. I do think that the action that the Board of Supervisors took yesterday in adopting its resolution can be something that we can hold up and say, look, we all, this is an issue of common concern, and we're all standing together to address it. I think that can help us in seeking the funds through DWR. There may be a point where it is something for this board to consider, that we would want to consider declaring an emergency on our end, so that we can get these facilities in place as quickly as possible to be able to respond to it. But as of right now, we're not making that recommendation to the board.
I think we need to be very careful about declarations of emergency, because you're going to start dragging in OES, you're going to drag in FEMA and everybody else and their brother, and they're going to want to know specific hard data to prove your case. And if you don't have that, I'd rather us not look stinky as a result of not having our complete package together before we make that step. However, I do think that we as a board should make a mirror declaration of what the Board of Supervisors. Thank you, Mr. Oliveira and Mr. Edson, for hammering out that decision yesterday. And I think we likewise should follow suit with what they had put together, so that there is some cohesiveness, and as we go forward, then everybody understands we're all in this together. And when it comes to dry and drought years, yes, people have to come before fish. People have to come before everything else, especially when it comes to our welfare here. And I think that the Board of Supervisors understand that very clearly, and I hope this board does as well. So I do have a question about what is the worst case scenario? And I don't think OID or SSJID really understand what that could be if we have a drought going into 2016. These releases that they're doing now are in essence eating our seed corn, if you want to call it that, because where's our future going to be when they throw up their hands and say, oh, well, we tried, but we got dry reservoirs. And that is a deep concern when you look at long-range modeling that says 2016, 2017 are likewise going to be low rainfall years. So when we decide to put an extension on that intake, not only is it going to impact us, but it's going to impact the economy of that community down there. And if we're thinking about doing that, I hope we only do it once, and that we look at the very worst case scenario when we do it, so that we don't come back and repeat it. But maybe we need to be looking at alternative sources as well, as part of our mix, whether it be Meridian Mine and desal, or whether we be looking at the tertiary area out there on this side, the Angels side of Bear Mountain. I don't know where it's going to be, but there is water sources that we may be looking at as alternatives that might not be long or short-term alternatives, but they might be long-term alternatives to guarantee our future there.
Good points. And this will continue to be, you will continue to be updated on this, and we can certainly bring a resolution back to the board's consideration. Right now, that's I think where we seem to be gaining a common understanding and consensus is that we really need to all be working together to try to be at the table to influence the operational decisions. Just the fact of just us bringing forward our elevation of our intake, and the fact that as of right now we do not have another source to provide the water supply there. That's critically important to bring that forward, and that's been helpful in being able to do that with our local agencies. But we really do that with reclamation as well.
I asked that we bring forward on the agenda the resolution mirroring what the County Board of Supervisors did yesterday, to be sure that we are on the same page, doing the same thing. I think it's critical that we do that, and we make the statement right now. It's saying dry and drought years, the people come first, and we just get that clearly stated.
We'll need to discuss that.
Well, I think that the reality is that's unfortunate, and I'm not saying fortunate or unfortunate, but it's just not the way the law reads today. And I don't know that we're going to be able to change that, but I certainly, I feel as Director Mills does, that at some point, we do have to put the people first. And back historically, creeks used to go dry. Before these dams were here, creeks would go dry all the time. And somehow the fish survived. But now it seems like we have to feed the fish every single year, and we're not storing enough water in the long term. So something needs to give there, So I recognize that, but I also recognize the significant challenges with that in the state of California. But I just have some other concerns. We were talking about some things yesterday in the engineering committee, and I want to talk more about opportunity of the drought. And I think that we clearly, when we're working on the ground as opposed to underwater, it's a lot cheaper. And we need to look at the potential. I hate to say there's a bright side here, because there isn't one, but we need to have all of our projects for the Lake Tulloch area, including rerouting the sewer line, which is a somewhat of a liability. We need to be looking at that opportunity and try to maximize it, and that might be one of those projects that we have to push ahead, because if we can do it when the lake is dry, as opposed to when we have to do it underwater, that'll be a huge savings to us. And I just kind of want us to be looking at these projections of if there's another drought next year, perhaps pushing some of these Lake Tulloch projects that we can do way more cost effectively than we've been planning on doing, push those ahead. It's all bad news, but we have to be responsible and take advantage of the bad news if it's helpful for us. So I just want everyone to be consider that. We may have to move forward on one of these projects that may not be our highest priority, but we can save so much money by doing it, and we're going to do it eventually anyway, that we just have to make that decision. So it's just something to consider.
We will be bringing back to the board those projects that we categorized, or that Bill Purley in engineering did, prioritize. And so we'll be taking a deep look at that in relationship to Lake Tulloch. Question, we have 2,500 water connections out there?
Approximately.
Mm-hmm. And, I heard a lot, a very well-attended meeting on Saturday. There was, over 400 people there, and I know we had a good presentation, and so...
Yeah, it was capacity and then some to the point that, and I got there when the presentation started, but I physically couldn't get in the door because you couldn't go in unless people came out, and of course nobody was coming out until they heard. They started to come out when they heard we're not gonna drain the lake this year. So that's when people finally left the room. But yeah, I've got to thank Bill and Joel Metzger for being there, and they're continuing work on this, and that's not going to stop. I mean, we're going to be in the public venues and also behind the scenes with people, particularly Tridam, to understand exactly what's happening day to day.
One of the things that I was thinking as we were talking about, going forward with grants or applying for whatever funds, we at all times know exactly how much water we have. Is that?
You mean within our reservoirs or within the runoff? I mean, we certainly can we know what day to day what our storage is in our reservoirs, and we know how much precipitation we've had to date, and with the snowpack. Moisture content surveys that are done, we have a pretty good idea of that as well. But again, just like right now, we still, unfortunately, this continues, and hopefully we see some better storms and things do improve. But
Because
once we get through the next month, then we'll have a very firm understanding of where we're at this year.
Because I'm sure every director knows that they go out there and the first question is, do we have enough water?
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to make sure that when we go in, we know what we have, and
The answer is yes.
We do have, we have reliable water supplies. This is a little different situation in that we really are right now dependent upon access to the reservoir. In some other cases, we may have more flexibility to be able to deliver from different sources so that we aren't quite as dependent upon one. But and on top of that, the fact that we've had such commitment to conservation and that effort, that again is provided some flexibility in dealing with the drought as well.
It's important to recognize that without question, we are in such better shape than either of our adjacent counties. And primarily, when we go into our water saving mode here soon, we'll be saving water for not just ourselves, but primarily for the rest of the state. I mean, that's what we're going to be saving water for. But compared to, I can assure you, Amador or Tuolumne County would love to be in our situation. I mean, worst case scenario, if something happens at one, we still have water at Hogan that we could take to Cabarabas, albeit it would be an expensive proposition, but it could be done. So I mean, we have plenty of water. It's going to be a struggle, but we'll be required to go into conservation mode by the state.
Yeah.
so we can call it March Madness or the March Miracle.
Well, let's have one first.
Oh, March Madness, I want to put my tennis shoes on. Dave, I'd like to actually step back a little bit. In part of your report here, you talked about this idea of using flood control reservoirs and bills now. They're really looking at real-time weather monitoring, soil moisture in relationship to, the old historic agreements of no, it's a flood control dam, keep it empty, and, kind of a thing. Because I know that was proposed for Hogan, years back, that it be used more effectively. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
You bet, and thanks for bringing that up. That was one of the things that we were informed about in D.C. when we, and one day we had members of Congress that actually came and spoke to the group, and one of the things they talked about was a bill that's emerging right now on this subject, and it's to try to push, particularly Army Corps, off of the paradigm that it's used to operate the reservoirs based on historic hydrology that we think may not be representative of where we're headed in the future. And so there's, decisions have basically been made with the graph, and it's been very formulaic, and we haven't had the flexibility. So you have evacuated storage, water resources are evacuated to preserve storage for flood protection, which of course is extremely important. But the reality may be that, we don't have, they may be evacuating storage, but we don't even have any storms, major storms on the horizon. And soil conditions within the watershed could be bone dry. So the idea is to try to really use better science now that there is a lot of work that's being done to really understand and better forecast model and gain better information on particularly these these Pacific storms that come across, and some cases the atmospheric rivers, and then of course other types of storms as well, so that you can use that kind of meteorologic modeling and have that in tandem with the operation of the reservoir, so that you can make more real-time decisions. You don't have to pull down, you don't have to release water unless and until you see that these storms are developing, and then you can move into that mode. And as well understanding how the soil is going to respond within the watershed. So I think, it's not, it probably won't be, enormous numbers as far as additional acre feet that could be stored in the reservoir. I think in Folsom Reservoir, I remember they were talking in the neighborhood of something around 60,000 acre feet potentially that could be gained.
What is that percentage-wise?
It's 900 and something, almost 1 million acre feet of storage there. But for those communities that rely upon a municipal water supply out of Folsom, that's a huge deal.
Well, just think if it was a statewide, if we could go 6% statewide, that's huge,
Sure. So I'm with you. That could directly impact operations at New Melones, at Hogan. So we'll keep a close eye on that. I expect to bring that bill to the legislative committee to review. I think there's this real promise in that area.
I completely, believe that that's a logical solution. Just because, obviously I primarily monitor Hogan and Cosgrove Creek, and, we've had some flood events there, but typically those flood events come when there's saturation. You can have the same kind of storm early in the season, and the water and the ground will absorb it. But we really don't have any issues until those creeks are running full, and then a big storm comes in, and that seems to be forecastable. Particularly, I'm interested in the testing of the watershed, for how much water it'll absorb. To me, it seems like a very logical thing that we could be doing. It'll take a little more work, but if we could gain, 5 or 6 percent more storage every year to carry over, that's going to benefit everybody.
Yeah, I was happy to hear that the Corps is actually kind of modernizing themselves.
Well, I've got to temper your enthusiasm a bit, because it's, I don't know how excited the Corps is about this, but this is legislation. And unfortunately, there's a feeling that's needed to really change.
Well, and what'll happen is the Corps will have to change their mission. Right now, water storage, I don't believe, is their mission. It's flood control, recreation. They've got some so to change that, it'll be interesting to see if that's going to be a federal change, or if it's just going to be a regional change, or if it'll change at all. But that's another one of those lobbying efforts that, it's nice, we'll have great access to,
that you and I have had discussions about possibly doing a community meeting down in the Copperopolis area in mid-May. We should have the data together from the April snowpack numbers and probably have a better idea of how the lake is going to be impacted, say after Labor Day. If we don't get the projected rains in, say, September, October, November of this year, it's only going to be exacerbated beyond what we know now. So the better we're able to, in essence, over-communicate the issue with the residents in Copperopolis and talking with Tridem. And I know they're working very hard with us to try to be sure that we're not impacted negatively. The better it's going to be for everybody. So this is a time for cooperation, not a time for anybody to be striking out on their own.
I completely agree, Richard Strange. I think the idea that this Team Telek idea that Tridem has introduced, is a really good idea. I think, their member agencies have been involved with the drought bill just like we have, trying to get additional flexibility of Melones to help them. We're trying to do that. I think that there are a host of things that we really should be working closely on. It affects all communities on the river system, and there's, and a lot of this is trying to influence what decisions that are made at a federal and state level, and that's something we should be working on together.
In NIMS, the fish flow people, they're stepping up too. They're having meetings that they normally have in April and March, and so we'll see.
That's a good point, and they're certainly, the consequences of losing an entire year class of fish, you know that very well. There's serious consequences, and that is it's a food supply for the world. And so, you know, I mean, there are a number of different considerations at play here. And, you know, I think, and that's kind of what we were talking about in DC with the Aqua Group was,